This is one of our best meetings of the year. First of all, if you don't know me, hopefully you all do at this point. I am Bill Egan, I'm the high school principal here. A couple things, I was asked to come and just talk about a couple things that we're working on. So I have class meetings with all the grades today. How many people went to the speaker last night? Awesome, good. So there's a few things that we're talking to kids about today. It's really our school climate goals. We take a school climate survey every 2 years. So we'll be taking one again in March. But there's three things we really we're working with kids on, we would like to see improved. One was not improving relationships, I don't have the word exactly, but basically improving relationships between students and teachers. So teachers would get to know students on a more personal level, and they could use that information to help drive some of the learning that happens in the classroom. That was one of the things we're looking at. Another thing is respectful differences between students. Like respecting all kinds of students, basically. What I told the kids today in our first meeting was, if you offend one, you offend all. And ultimately we're a family and we're all different, and we need to be cognizant of who we all are. So whether that's your race, your gender, if you're transgender. So we want to make sure that if we offend one, we offend all. And I said there are simple things we can do to make sure that we don't do things like that, such as the music we play in the hallways. The kids are always making sure that they play appropriate music. I talked about this. Is this videotaped? Probably, right? I don't think it'll go anywhere. Anyway, but I was on the field before the Turkey Bowl. Anybody go to Turkey Bowl? All right. So if you were on the field, you may have heard before the Turkey Bowl the music that they were playing on the Darien PA systems. And it was literally I hate to say it, but the N-word was played over and over and over again in the music. Now, I am sure they just chose the kids' music and played the music. But I was offended. And ultimately, I know other people would be offended. Then I came back and I was looking at our hype video, that was kind of placed out. And the one that was released on Facebook originally also had some inappropriate language in there, so we had that taken down. And ultimately it started making me think about some of the music and choices that maybe we're doing, or kids are kind of promoting. Some of them are offensive to women, and ultimately it's like starting to think about the lyrics. Just because it's a catchy beat doesn't make it okay. And it actually made me start to think I'm getting old, because the truth is, like, I generally am not, offended by much, and realistically, I want to make sure that everybody feels welcome at all times, at every place. So anyway, that's one of the things that we're working on. I said that's simple things that we can do here to kind of to help each other. Some of it's actually harder than you think, because a lot of that is freedom of speech issues, and not necessarily through the schools. That there's things that are posted outside of school, and then it's harder, and then you work to try and get things down. But realistically, having those conversations about that. So respecting each other's differences. And the third is reducing high stress. We think that there's a level of stress that's a really good thing for kids. As part of life and growing up is dealing with stress. We think that's not a bad thing. However, high stress is not necessarily awesome and can lead to unhealthy issues. So that's one of the things we're seeing with our trying to change how we look at homework here. With the cell phones, trying to put the cell phones away. We're also taking a look at our use of time, and how we run our schedule on a daily basis here. So those are all things we're looking at that we think can help reduce high levels of stress for kids. For those of you that did listen to the speaker, one of the things yesterday, one of the things that we're talking about at the class meetings today is, A, we want the phones away. So if your teachers aren't doing it, you need to make sure that you do it. Number two, they need to be off. If they're beeping and going off when they're in the caddies, that's also not a good thing. I think just the fact that if you can see the phones, which again, we'll get to that at some other point, I guess, we're not quite there yet, and I think it's a step in our direction, just seeing the phones adds 15% more stress, I guess, onto kids, because they're then looking at the phones and wanting to think about the phones. But certainly if they're going off, that adds more as well. So talking to kids about turning their phones off as they go in. I want this to be a very free place and feel like it's an awesome school where things aren't locked down and things like that, but I also want them to work with us when they're in class. They're not out, they're not on, and then that way they can have them in the hallways, because it's their items to have. Anyway, those are the three things that we're kind of focused on. I hope you guys are still enjoying your time. I will turn it over to our excellent team here as they work on their midterm stress, and I'm going to go off to a class meeting. So thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Hi everyone, I don't know if you remember, but I'm Christy Carrero. I am the grade 9 administrator, so I love working with all of your children every day and looking forward to continuing to meet each and every one of them. So I'm here with Cindy Rivera, our school counseling department chair. I'm sure well known by all of you. So we're here to talk to you about midterm exams. I can't believe we're already at that point where they're almost here, but they are.
Yeah,
Anything?
it's really good. Yeah, I'm going to start today with just talking about some of the overall basics of things you could do in terms of keeping things calm at home. And the different department chairs are going to come up and really talk more specifically about their subject areas and what how to prepare and study for those midterm exams. So, basically the very top of this is to have a positive attitude with your child and to really continue to have those positive words for them. It's going to be fine. It's not the worst thing in the world. This is your first time doing exams in the first semester of freshman year. Oftentimes, the students don't get it right the first time, but they learn from their mistakes always. And so, it counts for their semester grade. And if they do everything right and really work at it, the most you can expect is do your best. And we do everything we can to prepare them so that they have everything ready for them. It's an important time to stay in the present. Don't think about the future. Please don't talk about what's this going to do to your college prospects if you don't do well this year. Okay, so it's just first semester freshman year. Most colleges don't care too much about that semester. So it's getting them to understand how this works, understand what the schedule will be like, and helping for you to keep the home calm. We're going to talk about the calendar of exams, but for you at home to create a calendar with them using the subjects you have. You'll see that we have a couple exams before the long Martin Luther King weekend, then the rest of the exams after. It's good to have a plan of when you're going to study each day. Even though there are 8 periods in the day, there are not 8 exams they're going to have. Most, there may be 4 or 5 exams is what they'll have. So it can spread out over, and they may only have 1 exam in a day and be able to go home. So there's a lot of things that you can do in terms of laying that out for them and having them understand how to chunk it and study, a little bit at a time. The counselors were just in with them, talking to them about their learning styles. Did any of them come home and talk about that a little bit? So it wasn't just about visual, auditory, kinesthetic learners. We did have them look at that a little bit, but it was a survey that we introduced them to Naviance and got them into their Naviance accounts and did this survey on Naviance. So they can go back and show you the results of it. What it showed was the environment that they study best. So it could say, you really like a structured environment, sitting at a desk with a bright light. Or it might say, no, you really like a warm, comfortable environment. So sitting in a comfortable chair and listening to background music is a more effective way for you to study. So it was a good thing for them to look at and comment on, and as we're reviewing it with them in their freshman appointments, we're talking about how do you study best and how can you improve if you're not doing well on the tests leading up to midterms. So look back at that with them because it's been some interesting conversations in our freshman appointments. Which reminds me, a lot of kids aren't showing up for their freshman appointments, so if you can remind them of their appointments when they have them, it's a good thing. We're doing some good work in there around talking to them about preparing for the future and setting goals and a 4-year plan and how they want to achieve their goals if from where they are now to where they're going. So we've had some kids feel like I just don't have time right now. So it's like, well, they never have time, but it's a good time for them to come in and see us. At home, keeping things calm and predictable, not planning any big social events on Martin Luther King weekend. Please don't plan any trips to go away. They're going to feel like they need the time to be studying that weekend. Don't ask a lot of them during that time of say, oh, I'm having a major family reunion and you're going to be responsible for this, this, and this that weekend. You know, those are added stressors for them. As much as you can keep the home consistent and calm and with opportunities for studying, the better it will be. So it's an important thing to do. Also, make sure they eat. Let me just see. In terms of efficient studying, I think that's one of the big pieces I talk to kids about when they're not doing well. I ask them how they studied. They say, well, I looked over my notes. That is not studying, looking over your notes or rereading the chapters. Just talk to them about active studying, recopying their notes. Taking notes. We found historically when you write things, you remember things. So even typing is not as good as writing. And so as much as they can be making flashcards, we talk to them about their learning styles. Do they study better in a group or do they study better on their own? And so it may be better if, for them to be in study groups. To work with their friends. So that's not the worst thing in the world if that's the kind of learner that they are. So, there's a lot of different things you can do from the home front. Teachers will be talking about how to get extra help, and so we'll go over that. I think we'll take it from there. There's so much more. But.
So, since the awesome English department chair, Mr. Remley's here, I'll let him go first, and I can go over the logistics of the schedule, the buses, and all of that when all the department chairs have finished. Does that sound good? So you're up.
Thanks so much. Hi, good morning. I'm Evan Remley. I'm the chair of the English department. Oh, wow. I didn't even know that was a GIF. How about that? That might have been something, that seems like something I would have done, but I don't remember doing it, so I'll take credit for it. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the English exams, just sort of what to expect, what to prepare. But just a quick question, how many ninth grade parents here? Oh, ninth grade. Okay, that's what I thought. I mean, once you've gone through this process, you feel a little better about it. I was just reflecting on like this whole thing about sort of studying, preparing, and this battle. I was thinking last night. Is it Alex Salkever? Is that how you pronounce his name? So I was thinking about that a lot. I have 3 kids at home, and I was, I feel like we're in uncharted territory in some levels, like with technology and how it helps things, but then it seems to really constantly distract us. And I see this a lot with students, and I see it a lot with my own children. And last night, just sort of a funny anecdote, my son, he doesn't have a phone. I don't really allow him to be on my phone that much, but you know how that goes. Sometimes there it is, he's holding it. I'm like, what is going on? So I'm constantly changing the password and just want to make sure he doesn't have access to it. And he said, last night, he says, Dad, your phone was going off, and it was my friends texting me because they want to do this Secret Santa thing. I'm like, oh, jeez. He says, well, I replied back, I said, how did you reply back? You don't have, do you know my password? Because he's way too clever. He's always watching. And he says, no, I just used Siri. I said, And I was a little suspicious. So I went last night, and I went to the security settings. I was like, did this little bugger add his fingerprint to my phone? And he's asleep by now, and I'm starting to get angry, and I'm like, so I delete the fingerprint thing on there, and I realized this morning I deleted my own fingerprint from the phone, and kind of went to bad conclusions instantly about his intentions. You know how that is. So I just thought that was a funny little anecdote of the battle for phones and our attention. So now on to English exams. So English exams are skill-based, and they're not generally cumulative in content in that sense. They're going to focus on the 3 core areas, one or all of the 3 core areas of our curriculum: research, writing, or reading. So just to clarify, like we have English has sort of the spiraling curriculum, or kind of continue to sort of the winding road up the mountain. So to that end, we don't have departmental standard exams. Your teacher will decide your child's teacher will decide which exam best fits the content areas, their skill areas that they've focused on most heavily in first semester. The one exception, and it doesn't apply to ninth grade parents, is sometimes of our electives, particularly AP Lang and AP Lit, we do pull from. They're very similar exams. They're not identical for security reasons, but they're pulling from the College Board sort of suite of exams. Okay, so just 2 slides. So Hamlet's not like F. So they'll, a few weeks before exam, up to maybe even a little closer, they'll decide what type of exam will best suit the work for that semester. It can be a presentation. A lot of ninth grade teachers do like a persuasive speech. It's part of the research domain, so a lot of ninth graders have been working on that. So it might be a presentation of that, followed with a reflection. Whatever the case may be, they'll get some information, a study guide, a project sheet explaining like, hey, these are the expectations for that day and how you need to prepare. And the Writing Center is not open during the actual exam days, but on all the prep days beforehand. So say it is a speech, the students can do drop-ins during that or schedule conference time with their teachers if they're feeling anxious about their level of preparation or is their product any good. So yeah, it's usually pretty straightforward. I think that's my only slide. So, yep. All right, well, good luck, and I'll have to add my fingerprint. Oh, sorry, any questions? Go add my fingerprint to my phone now that I changed everything. So, oh, yes, sure.
How much time should they expect to allocate? I mean, this looks pretty fuzzy compared to my kid's bio preps can be very focused and allocated based on days. I don't have a sense of what he should be carving out for English.
I mean, I think it's really, you're gonna have to talk to the teacher. It really depends. There's usually, of our exams, I don't think are the most stress inducing to students. I don't know how to say that, because they're the nature of the subject are less cumulative. I think some of the ones for freshmen, I mean, my guess would be study-wise, prep-wise, it could be a few hours. It just depends a little bit on the teacher. But in 10th grade, for instance, a lot of the team, we do like a reading writing prompt, very similar to what our benchmarks are. So some students don't, I think that the concern will be they don't prepare at all for that. They think, well, it's just, well, can I read or not? And there are things you can do to prepare and sort of get ready for that and review. So just if they're giving you the sort of, yeah, I'm good to go, you might want to nudge them a little bit. Well, there's going to be something. There's going to be some sort of culminating experience. What would that be? But yeah, the teacher does have a lot of latitude into what that will look like. All right, well, good luck, and I'll hope everything goes well. Thank you.
Just to reiterate what Evan is saying, I do find the students in English don't worry about the English exam because they know exactly what they're doing. They're preparing for a project or a presentation all the way up through it. So there's not a lot of home stuff that needs to be worked on because they're working in class leading up to it. So you can expect to ask for a study, like what is the expectation that should be in writing or it is online from the English teacher. But they never stress about English. They're like, it's English. So that and they don't worry because they're very confident in what the expectations will be on that one. All right, while we're waiting for Mrs. Birkin to come in for science, we'll go back, yes, and just show you the exam schedule and how this works.
So this is the anticipated exam schedule. Of course, if we have a snow day, then it would push everything back a day. But just so you know, for this schedule, the buses run on a normal day. So you can see the last exam ends at 11:30, but the buses still run at after 2 o'clock time. So if a student does need to take the bus in the morning and the afternoon, the cafeteria will be available for them to go and study, and so will the library. As well as different teachers will still be here. So if they schedule time with them to go for help. If there is a delay for weather, then everything just gets pushed back 2 hours, but that would be.
At this point, will the junior class please meet in the auditorium for a brief class meeting? Once again, the junior class, the auditorium for a brief class meeting. Thank you.
So that would be, emailed out to students, posted on the website, so all that will be clearly communicated. If you notice, in between the first exam and the second exam, there's a 45-minute window, which I think is great. So it allows kids to kind of finish that first exam, take a little debrief, and then before they're starting their second exam. And during that time, we have scheduled kind of wellness activities that aren't mandatory. They're just available for kids. So the PFA always generously donates snacks, which the kids just devour. It's awesome. There's sometimes some therapy dogs for petting. The gym is open for games. There's quiet study spaces. In the past, there's been yoga or meditation. So there's different options or things available to students to kind of just distress and take their mind off studying for a couple minutes. Also, no one will have 8 exams. So if your student doesn't have an exam, say exam 1, they're not required to be here. So you can allow them to sleep in, and they can come in, for their exam. Same thing with leaving early. So if they have the first exam but not the second exam, there's no requirement that they're here for the entire school day. I saw some hands, yeah.
Do the numbers correspond to the period number? Or you can say like period 8 is exam 1, period 7?
They correspond to the period number.
So we know now kind of what.
Exactly.
Yep. And then in the spring, it usually is the reverse, 8 to 1. Yep.
So you'll find that kids are surprised by how calm it is around here during that week. Kids come in their pajamas, they come really relaxed, they're only here for a short time, and then they have the rest of the day, which is good study time for them, or organizing for them for the next block of time that they're going to have to be here. So it is so well spread out that, and there's not much else going on, there's not a lot of activities during that week. There's a lot of time to get help from teachers, so they'll feel that calmness around school. The first day is like, and then they realize that it's kind of this calm kind of day that week goes on.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was multitasking, so I didn't get you highlighted this. Did the kids get this schedule, or how do they know? So again, we push it to them.
I don't think the schedule's been published yet. Do you
I
know
don't
that?
know that it is.
But it's not necessarily secret.
They'll get it somehow.
They will get it. Yep, it will be published probably.
Usually there's a letter that goes home.
Yep, with- Bill will put it in the weekly update. It goes on the website, and it's emailed to the students.
Other questions?
Yeah. Quick check.
Go get a check on people, because I can't speak Spanish, so. Sure.
I did, this is the beginning, but do you all talk to the kids about study skills and prioritizing, how it's something they get to?
Yeah, I think it happens in their classes quite a bit. And if it's not, I'd like to know about that. But generally, I feel that when I talk to them, they know the answers about how they're doing things. So it does happen. I'm sorry, the question was, do we talk to the students about study skills? So it's more on a random one-on-one basis, and when we were in the learning styles classes, we talked to them about that. But yes, I think in each individual subject area, they're getting a lot of information on that. Ali Zilberkin is here to talk about language. Get yourself ready. You're up. Great. This is Ali Zilberkin, one of our Spanish teachers.
Hi. So I'll just give you a little overview of what is included in the world language. Sorry, I'm a little out of breath. I ran up the stairs today. But what's going to be included in the midterms for world languages? Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so the exams are cumulative exams, and the reason they're cumulative is because you can't possibly use just one component of language when you're taking an exam. So you're going to have to include, I'm so sorry, I'm like seriously out of breath. You're going to have to include all of what we've been learning from the beginning of the year until now. So it's 4 skills. It's listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And it's proficiency-based. So that means that students will be asked questions that they're going to have to, it uses kind of higher level thinking skills to be able to answer the questions. There's also a grammar component in there so that, I know, I'm sorry, I really ran up the stairs. So there's also a grammar component. So within that, it's all the grammar that they've learned from the beginning of the school year until this point in time. The teachers will be able to provide a study guide, and in that study guide will include all of the information that they're going to have to study. It's really, other than that, if you have any questions, I can answer.
Could you talk a little bit about how I feel like world language is sometimes a little bit different in
Yeah.
that some of the exams are in the classroom and then it's during exam day as well?
Yeah.
Is that still the case?
So sometimes we do start the sections a little bit ahead of time, and that's so that students have, and it depends on the class, so not all languages give the test in that way. But because there are different components to the test, we want to give students enough time to think through it. And it sometimes helps to break down what they have to study. So if we break it up and give like the writing section ahead of time, usually that's what happens, is the writing section, at least for Spanish or for French. I'm not really, if it's for Mandarin or Latin, you would have to go directly to the teacher. But I know that for Spanish and French, we sometimes give the writing section ahead of time to give students time to think through what they're going to be writing, and also to give extra time for them to study for the specific grammar sections, because that takes more memorization, just takes more time to practice that for the day of the midterm. So, any other questions about that? Yes.
When do the study guides come home? Is that before the holiday break or right after? And also, can we expect that the weeks leading up to the exams in January are kind of preparation in class, or are they learning new material and supposed to study on their own?
It depends on the class. So there are some classes that will teach. Oh, sure. The question was, when will study guides be handed out? And also, will new material be taught up until the day that they have exams? And so it just it depends on the class. Mostly for freshmen, though, they will have, I would say, 1 to 3 days, depending on the class, to do an actual review in the classroom. And then the study guides are usually given to students. I don't know that necessarily they'll be given right before break, although I could request that. I could send an email and request that. But because we don't want to encourage students to study during break, although they can, but right after break. So it just depends. I mean, some people go away. We want to encourage them to be able to spend time with their families. So if you would like the study guide way ahead of time, I'm sure you can contact the teacher and ask for it, but we generally don't give it until right after they get back from break. Any other questions? Okay.
That's a good point, is that, some will provide those study guides ahead of time, but we don't want to make this the next 6 weeks of their lives, that all they're doing is studying for midterms. So it is important to realize that, we do expect some studying, but not 24/7 for 2-3 weeks. They are preparing in class leading up to it, but they are still getting some current material in January as they're going. So again, it's around not putting so much emphasis on midterms, even though we're talking about it here. It's only to prepare you to know what to expect. The kids will be getting that information as it's appropriate for them. But one thing they could be doing, if they've had a bad test, if they did not do well in certain tests, that this is the time to go back to those particular assessments. What was the material there that they didn't get right? Start to review that piece. Because there's a good chance something from there is on the midterm. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been tested on it already. So, they could be looking at that. You could be going into the portal and seeing, what was that test about? Why was that one particularly difficult? Let's go back to it. Because they'll be avoiding that at all costs, of not having to go back and look at that, because they didn't get it the first time. So it is really important to even start with those kinds of things, to start to look at that and help them to plan how they're going to meet with their teacher around those particular
issues for them, that's particular to them, that they had difficulty with. So that's really essential. If they've been breezing along pretty well, then they're going to probably breeze through the midterm as well. So it's just the fact of the cumulative nature that makes them a little bit nervous, that they're going back to things from September and October. So that will be a little bit on the scary side. So we're waiting for Mr. Stevenson. They're all late, so I'm like going to be on them. They're coming to me all day. When am I coming? What am I doing? So they're not doing well today. So go ahead. There he is. Go ahead.
The learning styles.
Yes.
Is that on Naviance, or where is that information?
It's in Naviance in their accounts, yes. So they can take a look at it there. We had a lot of technical difficulty getting it all started, but once they did it, they did enjoy doing it. So.
And as an example, like a junior would have it in there as well somewhere?
Juniors also have it. Yes, they would have done it. Everything's in Naviance if they had it. So, Mr. Bob Stevenson.
Is this a test to see which one I pick?
No, you can come right up here and do it.
Great. All right. Whew, it's a busy day. Sorry, I'm running around a bit today. So in social studies, there's a lot of discussion across sections about the mid-year exam. They're not identical, but they get at the same skills and the same range of material. The emphasis is not on memorization and history anymore at the high school. It's on concepts and skills and big themes. In the past, there's been more emphasis on content, and I think therefore there was more maybe desire to see the old tests and have them home. And I imagine you've had that conversation already a little bit with science or other classes. But we don't send the tests home. And the reason we don't is because we take a long time to write questions for the test. And some of them are from standardized test banks that are secure and aren't supposed to be out there. So there are copyright reasons we don't do it. There are also just security reasons. But understand that if there is a desire to see the actual test, your child can go and meet with the teacher. Most, if not all, I believe all teachers at this point for a couple days before the test will pull out, before the exam, will pull out all the tests, have kids for an entire period working with them, looking at the ones they got wrong, correcting them. They should have been doing this right along as well. So when they have a unit test, once it's corrected, it goes back and you get a few minutes to look over those. And in my class anyway, students get to write down notes and take notes on what they want to review. But a larger and larger percentage of our tests and exams in social studies are document analysis, visual literacy, map reading, that kind of stuff that they really don't need to have access to. It's about skill-based stuff. It's about skills we're working on daily in these classes. So I hope some of the need to spend hours and hours with the tests is alleviated by that shift we've made. There are teacher websites where all teachers should be posting a study guide in the next couple weeks. Some have expressed a desire not to give it to kids officially until after the break, saying they want kids to take a break. And if more than 2 weeks is needed to review every few minutes review a few minutes a day, then you really need to get your child into the teacher ahead of time now to say, look, we're really feeling unprepared and we need to do some extra work. But for 99% of students, you shouldn't need more than that 2 weeks building up to the test to review material. That said, there's a companion to the Global History textbook online. I just went and reviewed it this morning. There are 20 multiple choice questions related to each chapter that are pretty good. They're useful. In a couple of cases, there are questions from those that are on the exam or things very close to that. But I would emphasize at least half the grade on the exam is not multiple choice or objective questions. It's going to be document reading and analysis that they can do on the spot. They'll be given some time to read documents during the exam. They'll be given time to take notes on those documents during the exam. And as freshmen, those documents will be pretty concise, pretty focused. I think in a couple of classes, if it's a longer document, they're only given 2 documents. So they get 10 minutes to read each one and then 20 minutes to write a response to a big theme that they've dealt with in class before. So there will be a study guide provided in every class. Most of those won't be pushed out to kids until after the break. in the case of my classes, they're already online and they can see them on the class website. And I think that's the case, and I'll double check with everybody after this meeting to make sure they're available earlier if people need it. Format, there'll be essays on every single exam in every single class across AP and the regular sections. That essay will be document-based, so they'll read some document related to material they've already covered, and they'll be asked a big thematic question about that document or those documents where they need to pull out some evidence from them and use it in their response. It's a timed essay, so we don't grade on grammar and mechanics in the way we would for a revised essay. The big themes will be something about compare and contrast or change over time, so that if they have 4 or 5 documents, they'll either be from different times or from different civilizations. Kids will be asked to look across some big theme related to that. Often teachers will give a big hint about what that is on the study guide or in class. In most cases, they've only done 2 or 3 units, so it's going to be something that either crosses a couple of those units or focuses on one. If it focuses on one, I suspect it's the last one that the students have done. Short answers, I think most tests don't have short answers at this point. If they do, it's just a couple of them, identifications or vocab kinds of things. But the objective questions, when I went to school was multiple choice, know this, know this, know this, is now more analysis. Analyze this chart, this map, this quote, this statement. So I think that's good news, and I'm happy that we've moved in that direction. But there's still a few content questions, but they tend to be basic content questions from the unit, and they tend to be the ones that are the easiest questions on the exam nowadays, rather than hard gotcha content questions. As in any class, as in any course in the high school, distributed practice is important. So it should be a little bit of studying over a long period of time rather than cramming and missing out on sleep or any of that. Organizing notes are useful. Being an active participant in organizing your notes, meaning organizing them with an outliner, a pen in hand, circling vocab can be useful. Taking a couple of note cards and organizing by theme off the study guide is a good idea. All teachers are giving these as digital now, so you can create a Google Doc and organize that way. I suggest handwriting is better than the typing review. Brain science says that that's a more effective way to review concepts. If you're going through chapter by chapter, taking those headings of each section and turning it into what's the big question from this section can pay off when you're studying. And then working with classmates. We'll give them time in class in the few days leading up to the exam. We don't give any new work, any new content in I forget what it is, 3 days or 5 days before the exam. Is it 3 or 5? 3 days at least before the exam. They won't have any new content, no new tests or quizzes. If they're doing work at home, it's work that'll be precisely related to review of concepts that'll be on that exam. I think math is coming up next. What questions do you have for me about preparation for the exam? I hope 50% of that grade is going to be based to my knowledge, in all the classes, half the grade is based on that essay, and if it's less than that, it's because it's a little shorter essay, but it should be close to half and half, the objective and the essay portion of the test. Sure, hi.
Is the test departmental? Or
No, and the reason we do that is because if it was a departmental test, the word would get out about what the essay question is, and you would get better and better essays as we went through the 8 periods. We are doing cross-departmental benchmarks in the freshman year. Those are more project-based than anything else. In the sophomore year, we have a benchmark going on this week where all students are looking at the admission of women into Oxford in the year 1800. And that is cross-grade, and the reason we do it that way is it's not a high-stakes activity. It's a benchmark, so it just counts as a completion grade. There's no need to go talking to other people about what the topic is because your performance on it doesn't affect your GPA. It's about information for the teacher and student about where do we stand in development of the skills that we're working towards. So on the exam, they do vary. The topics for the DBQ will vary. The documents that they look at will vary across sections, and we do that to allow teachers to differentiate based on the kids that are in their class and for security reasons. Other questions or? None. Thank you. Do you want me to test out the other mics for you?
No.
Okay.
You want to talk some mathematics here?
Sure, I was a math major for a while. Oh, you don't want my life story. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, the first point of contact is probably your child. Have them talk to the teacher if you can encourage that. The second point is contact the teacher. We're accessible, we're available, we'll get back to you within a day or a day and a half, depending on schedules. And they're going to be a better source than me, but if there's some issue beyond that, let me know as a curricular leader. We try to build alignment across the classes, but it's not a lockstep. We all do the exact same thing, and that's to give teachers leeway to do the best thing that they know works with your children who are in front of them every day. Thank you. He chose.
You can do math as well.
Oh. 2 plus, what? Thank you.
Am I up?
You're up.
Morning.
Anthony Velasquez.
I just ran down here, so give me a minute to catch my breath. Been a busy day. Midterms. I've asked each of my teachers to try and get the midterm review packets out by before holiday break, just to give your kid an opportunity if they want to look at it over break. We're not requiring that because we do want kids to get a break and to relax and regenerate and, spend time with family and friends. But, wow, I'm out of breath. I can't believe it. I haven't moved that fast in a while. We want your children to have it in advance so that if they want to start looking at the packet, they have the opportunity. What we're trying to prevent is your child 2-3 days before the midterm starting the packet. That's just asking a lot, and it's 20 weeks of material. That's a lot of material to have to review. So every year I ask, and I've already asked the department to make sure that the review packets are given out before December 20th, which is the last day of school. And if that doesn't happen, please let me know. But again, my department's been pretty good historically at ensuring that the review packets are distributed by that time. Now, again, just to reiterate, we're not asking kids to spend a ton of time over break looking at it, but if there is some downtime and they do want to get a little bit ahead, they have the opportunity, if they have the packet, to do so. So please know that those packets will be given out remarkably in the next 2. We only have almost a little over 2 weeks left before the holiday. So, yeah, right. So that's what's going to happen, just to let you know. Please reiterate to your children, and my staff and I will do the same. You need to start looking at that packet little by little. If you try to save your review to the last 2 or 3 days, I don't care what level and what course you're in, you're really your child is putting themselves it's a huge disadvantage. It's a lot of material. It's a lot, especially at some of the higher level classes, like an Algebra 2 or even a geometry. It's a lot of material to unpack and to review in a limited amount of time. So if you could help us, just reiterate to your children, take a look, take 10 minutes a night, 15 minutes a night, look over the material. That way, when they get closer to the exam, they're not feeling that additional added stress of, oh my goodness, my midterm is in 2 days, I haven't looked at my packet yet. And a lot of my teachers make the review packet part of homework assignments those last several days to sort of force kids to take a look. But even then, that's a little bit too late, in my opinion, to start looking at the packet for the first time. So if you could just help us communicate to your children, again, we're not asking over break they're spending an hour and a half a night doing math. That's ridiculous, and it's not necessary for any of your children. But to start looking at it little by little, day by day, it alleviates a lot of that last minute stress that, especially for 9th graders who aren't used to taking this many exams in this little amount of time, we're trying to minimize that additional stress. There's inherent stress in taking exams. All of us have taken a ton of exams in our lives. I don't care how prepared you are, I don't care how advanced you are, you're still going to have stress. That's healthy stress if you're prepared. And you're properly prepared, in my opinion, if you have looked at stuff well in advance as opposed to just doing it all in one night or 2 nights. Each exam varies by course. In math, not only do we have different courses, we have different levels. So the M3 geometry midterm is different than the M2 geometry midterm. So just keep that in mind. But we do give department exams, meaning all the M3 geometry students in the school take the same M3 geometry midterm. Your child's teacher obviously could provide more specific information and will do so to your children as we prepare them to take the exam. This third bullet is my favorite bullet because I think we are all guilty of, when we're preparing for something, focusing on the things we know to make ourselves feel better, when in reality we're just wasting time. It's one of the most important study skills I think we, and I know my department, we try to instill in our students. You focus on the things when you're preparing for an exam that you're struggling with, not the things you know. The things you know, you know. Why are you wasting time? We all know our children's time is limited. When 2:05 hits, some of their days are half over. For them to spend 30 minutes reviewing a concept at night that they already understand is a waste of time. So they need to be focusing on those concepts and skills that they're struggling with and working on them and asking questions about them to best prepare themselves for the exam. So once again, if you could help us communicate to your children, hey, are there any concepts or topics, and we do a lot of this in our preparation, are there any concepts or topics that you're struggling with? Let's focus on that. Make sure you ask Mr. Bloss about that topic, the one that you really don't truly grasp. That's how you properly prepare for any exam. I don't think that just holds true for math. I think that's true for any discipline. What? Most, if not all, of my teachers will provide some type of extra help review session for midterms and finals. Okay, I know I do, and I know most of us do. I'm talking outside of class. What I normally do is I'll pick a day during the midterm period right before their test, and at like 12 o'clock, 12:15, I'll invite that entire class to come in for an hour or so, and it's just an additional review for that class to ask questions. We also review for 3 or 4 days in class before the exam. But a lot of us are doing even additional review sessions. Now, they're not mandatory, quite honestly, because we can't make them. They're outside of school hours. But I tell my students, you really should try to be there. You're going to get some really good information from me. You might hear a question asked from another student that piques your misunderstanding of something. Wow, I thought I got that. I don't now, but I'm glad I came because now I get it. Most of us do something like that. Again, ask your child's teacher what their plans are. And again, I can tell you quite honestly, I will do it. I don't know the plan yet because I'm trying not to. I know midterms are coming, but I'm going to wait till probably, I'll let them know when we get back because that's still plenty of time. But I will have a review session for all of my classes. You probably know this already, but for the first time this year, we have a math help center that is manned or womaned by math teachers as opposed, we've had an aide in the past, an aide who has a math background and who did a very good job providing additional support to our students. This year, math teachers are sitting in this, I'm actually supposed to be there now. I'll run there after this. I'm going to be out of breath again. We have teachers sitting in the math office all periods, well, I think in this semester, everything but period 2, and then next, because there's not enough math teachers. For the majority of the day during a period, there's a math teacher sitting in the math lab. Why? Let's say your child, their schedule, it's last minute and their schedule doesn't jive with their teacher, but they have a question. They can go in there and ask. It's drop-in. You don't have to make an appointment. You basically walk in, hi, can you help me with this? And math teachers are sitting in there to provide that support. So your kids have been made well aware of that. But again, if you could reiterate that support is available, that would be very helpful to us. And that support will continue throughout the year. Hi.
Is it open after school?
No.
Like, so-
205. Yeah, if they want to meet with their teacher before or after school, they need to do that with their specific teacher. Yeah. I got in trouble at the last meeting for this. Most of our teachers are using Schoology. Schoology is a learning management system. I can tell you that most of my teachers are using it, and quite honestly, are using it more extensively than we've been required to so far. That I can tell you for certain. A lot, not all, but most of my teachers are providing resources in Schoology to provide additional support to your children, i.e. videos, additional work, note support, links to other videos. Khan Academy, for example, great resource. Those are available and will continue to be available. But what I tell parents all the time is the best resource to start with is your child's teacher. They're the experts. They know what's going on in that 48 minutes. Start with them. If your child is not seeing their teacher for help and you're looking for additional resources, I'm going to tell you to go and talk to your child's teacher. You need to start there. Okay? These other things are in lieu or in addition to working with your child's teacher or having them work with their teacher. Because I'm of the belief, ninth graders, we need to start making them more proactive and more self-advocates. We don't need to let go completely, but it's nice to start getting them to do a lot of this stuff on their own. I know as a teacher and as a coach, I like it a lot better when a kid comes to me with concerns. Not to minimize or to belittle hearing from parents. I'm a parent. I have a child in high school. I get it. But it's always nice when we hear from kids and they're able to articulate what they need and what their concerns are. That bodes well for them and also helps us to better help them. Because then the communication lines are pretty clear because it's coming from the kid. I think I spoke longer than I was supposed to, but once I caught my breath, game over. Are there any questions? Hi.
Question about the weight of the midterm.
The weight of the midterm is 20% of their first semester grade. 40, 40, 20, 40, 40, 20. That's how we do it in the math department.
Do you know if that varies by subject?
It does. I can tell you for the math department, that's what we use, but Ms. Rivera would be more qualified to answer the other.
Can't be more than 20%. Okay, but it might be less.
Any other questions? You're welcome. If you have any specific general math questions, myself or Becky Pavia, we're the two co-math chairs, you can reach out to us, but again, my suggestion would be to reach out or have your child reach out to their teacher first. Thank you, good luck. It's gonna be fine. They're gonna get through it, trust me. I don't know who's next, but.
Last but not least, we've got Mr. Haig here from the Science
Oh,
Department.
sorry. So.
Yes.
Good morning. So who's a first-time parent here? It will be okay. Like Anthony said, he's a parent. I'm a parent too. My son is out of high school, but it works. It's going to be okay in the long run. So just a few things. We assess skills and content from first semester, and I should say also, before Anthony gets too far out the door, he stole a lot of my thunder. You've probably heard the same thing from several people already, just to reiterate. The format varies from course to course. It'll be similar within content areas. For example, the geophysical science teachers will give the same exam, the bio teachers will give the same exam, the honors bio teachers will give the same exam, so forth. The teachers will announce the type of exam, so when we say determine the type of exam, the teachers will share that with the students. Teachers provide study guides, access to review materials, and teachers do have either a website or an online presence. Again, I can't speak for all members of the department. I think I'm pretty sure everybody is on there on Schoology to some extent. Some teachers are using it in a little bit more detail than others are. Just a question for you. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So one of the teachers, I asked that before, and he said, with some trepidation. Yes, definitely. So like Anthony said, take it in bits and pieces. I know when my son was in high school, if it wasn't due the next day, or if the exam wasn't the next day, he wasn't going to do it. He wasn't going to study unless it was the night before. And he got into college and things changed dramatically at that point. He became much better at budgeting his time. So here we are, here you are as parents trying to help your children budget their time. Here we are as teachers trying to help your children budget their time. And that's really the most important thing. If they wait until the last minute, it's probably not going to end so well. But if they take it a bit at a time and they recognize those areas where they seem to be having the most difficulty, focus on those, that's really going to be a key to success. So in terms of extra help, we all offer extra help different times. I tell my students, typically I'm here pretty early in the morning, so I tell my students it's fine to arrive early if you have questions for me. They don't want to arrive when I get here, but we're available at some point, before school, after school, during free periods. I had a free period earlier this morning, and I had several students stay to finish a lab, or a couple others that I hadn't seen yet today. Their classes meet after lunch, but they showed up to work on a lab. So we are available. If you're looking for specific class information, I understand that this is shared with you. That click here, I won't show that now, but there's postings from probably about half of the members of the science department, some for multiple classes. I did not include anything in there because I have all upperclassmen. However, some of the teachers, there's information for upperclassmen as well that applies to freshmen. So the study techniques apply to freshmen as well. But really the thing to do is find out from your child's teacher, have your child ask them, or go online, find out specifics of the exam. I can say that in geophysical and honors geophysical science, the exam will be partly multiple choice, 50 multiple choice questions, and then a series of short answer questions based on the individual units that they've done in the first semester. Biology is a quarter exam. If your student is in biology or honors biology, you're familiar with the 2 quarter exams, and each of those counts as half of the midterm grade. So Anthony addressed that, the 40, 40, 20, 40% per quarter and 20% for the midterm exam. That midterm exam is divided into the 2 quarter exams. So they'll be taking the 2nd quarter exam at that time. Anything else I didn't address, or any questions that you have? I know you've heard a lot this morning. So. It will be okay. Have your students try to relax. You know, I'm sure you've heard, make sure they have a good breakfast, make sure they get a good night's sleep the night before. That might be kind of a tough one, but they will be okay. And there's a lot of support here, and we're here to make sure they're successful. So thank you.
One thing I did think of that we didn't address is that if your child gets extended time, if they have a student with some 504 plan or an IEP, that's also the reason for that 45 minutes in between the first exam and the second exam. So kids who need more time, they can work out with their teacher either to come in a little early and finish the exam with their class, or stay a little bit longer. So for those of you who need that, that's another thing that the child will be talking with the teacher about how to plan that. And that is, and you can certainly ask the child's counselor if you need help with that and with organizing the plan for that week if they are someone who gets extended time. So that's an additional thing to think about. Any final questions? I think you sort of heard it all a million times in terms of staying calm and planning things well, and not taking, really try not to force them to do much over Christmas break, so if you can. All right. Yep.
Is part, when you did the How They Learn test, was part of it, was one of the questions, if they look at the study guide before the break and little pieces, is that less anxiety provoking or more anxiety? Was that one of the things that you addressed there?
I don't remember seeing that as a quality. One of the ones was, whether you prefer to work independently or you like authority. So, which is important in terms for you to know, the parent involved, does that help or hurt? For some kids, they do appreciate that. For other kids, it works against them. So, there are some different tidbits. They're all sort of minor, but gave them little seeds for thought in how they work with things. And it has to also jive with the rules of your house. So it's something to just work on and look at. But I think it did give them some good information around things to change things up a little bit if it hasn't been working well for them so far. Okay? And the counselors are certainly available for those conversations too. Thank you, everyone.